Yay.
This is one of my this is one of my favorites because we get to like meet new people, and sometimes it's people that you guys have met before and sometimes brand new people. So
Yep.
welcome, welcome. We are so glad to have each and every one of you here today at our OUM admissions information session. I'm Associate Professor Nicolette McGuire Carter, and I'm our Associate Dean for Student Engagement, and I'll be our facilitator for today's session. And I'm joined today by Ms. Shanda Gordon and Ms. Camille Dahl, who are our amazing admissions officers that just have a wealth of information, and they're just also super nice people. So we're really excited to speak with each of you today and provide you a little bit more information that you may need as you make decisions about your medical student journey. So I want to say a talofa and welcome to Barbara and Brendan and Jacqueline and Brittany, Kiora to Bruna and Christopher, Claire and Diamond and Ernest, Wanya to Francis and Grace and Jay and Joan and Latosha and Lucy, Matthew and Motutama and Nasser and Nate. Bonsoir to Navina and Nomusa and Nono and Philippe and Ronnie and Ruth and Sage and Sangita and Talofa to Victor and Bihara. Just scrolling back through my list, making sure I didn't miss anyone who's here in person, and also Kiora to any of you who are joining us via recording. We're so happy to have you here. So our agenda today is as follows. We'll do a bit of introductions. I'll be providing an overview of OUM. Ms. Camille is going to talk a little bit about admissions requirements. Ms. Shanda is going to talk about the admissions process and requirements for your applications and the interview process. We'll pass it back over to me to talk about the OUM curriculum and some of our student support services, and we'll have time at the end for Q&A. So feel free throughout the session. We do have a Q&A box, and we can take questions in our Q&A box throughout the session. We also have some questions that were submitted in advance via our online form, so we'll be able to get to those as well. And if throughout the session or during the Q&A at the end, if you'd like to take the microphone and ask your question live, we'd also be happy for you to join us here on audio. Okay, so over to our introductions. So Ms. Shanda, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure. Thank you, Associate Professor McGuire Carter. And welcome, everyone. I'm happy to see you all here today. My name is Shanda, and I am the Admissions Counsellor for Australia, Aotearoa, New Zealand, and Samoa, and I'm located in Brisbane, Australia. And I look forward to assisting you all today and assisting you with your current or future applications to OUM. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Shanda. Ms. Camille, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. My name is Camille Dahl, and I am going to be your admissions counselor for North America. So I covered Canada and US and its 5 territories. I'm always happy to help answer any questions, help you get through the application process. Very accessible, so feel free to reach out to me anytime with any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Ms. Camille. I'm Associate Professor Nicolette McGuire Carter, just Dr. N, and I am joining you today from tiny Ontario, Canada, which is in fact a tiny place. And I have the distinct pleasure of supporting students throughout their medical student journeys at OUM. So I support our prospective students, students who are entering the university as matriculants, as they go into orientation in their first classes, as they complete preclinicals and their clinical rotations, and finally as they become graduates and alumni of the university. So we are very serious about ensuring that each and every student that comes to OUM has the support and the removal of barriers that they need to be successful in our program. And we want to ensure that all of our prospective students have the information that they need to make an informed decision about whether OUM is the right fit for them in terms of their medical student journey. So very happy to have each and every one of you here today. And we will move on to the next part of our webinar. So you may know a little bit about OUM from your web searches, or perhaps by talking with some of our admissions counselors, or maybe you've gone on to our website and had a look at some of our programs or about us. I've seen some of our student testimonials or any of our videos. You can find us on YouTube and on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram. So there's all sorts of places to get information about the university and our community and see what our current goings on are. At our core, we are a medical school that is committed to serving underserved communities in the Pacific Islands area and beyond. So some of you may have experience working or living in those communities. Some of you may have experience living or working in currently underserved communities in one of the areas that OUM serves, which is Australia, Aotearoa, New Zealand, Samoa, Canada, and the US. One of the things that's unique and has been at the core of education at OUM since its inception is we have a hybrid curriculum. So what that means is that the curriculum is sort of split in half into preclinical and clinical phases. So preclinicals are your basic sciences about your system, so cardiovascular system, pulmonary system, urinary system, etc. All of those classes are offered as online courses, and you're in classrooms in a Zoom room just like this, where you get to interact with your professors and discuss topics with your classmates. And then you also have recorded lectures and readings available in our virtual library. The hybrid part is that you also have in-person components to your degree. So as you make your transition from the preclinical program into the clinical program, you have a mix of online and in-person classes to prepare you with your clinical skills and to prepare you for safe practice as a medical student in the clinical phase. And then you are doing your clinical rotations. So for example, you'll go into family medicine clinics, into hospitals for internal medicine and for surgery. And you also have support via an online curriculum that provides you supplementary information and support throughout that time period as well. So our program is designed for what we would call non-traditional students. That is students who have previous healthcare careers. So we have a lot of students who are paramedics, nurses, other allied health professions, and also students who are transitioning into medicine, whether that is directly from another degree or undergraduate program or transitioning into medicine from a different career outside of healthcare. So we have a lot of students who are engineers or teachers who don't have healthcare experience. And sometimes we have questions about, is this program right for me if I don't have a healthcare background? Well, we cannot answer if it's the right program for you specifically just based on your background, but we can tell you that we do have a mix of students from all different types of backgrounds with all different levels of experience. And that's the way that we like it. Because when you are in classrooms and on clinical rotations, we want you to bring the experiences that you do have to enrich and enhance the learning experience of yourself and of others. We have a global community here at OUM. So as part of our hybrid curriculum, students are studying the preclinical program from their home country. And then as they transition into the clinical units, they are also taking clinical rotations on site in their home countries. And all students at OUM have a common thread that runs through their degree, which is that they do a 4-week clinical rotation in Samoa. And pictured here is Tupua Tamasese Mea Ole Hospital, which is in Apia, Samoa. And you could even look that up right now if you want to see where that is and see some other pictures of this facility. This is often cited as an absolute highlight of the medical students' journey through their classes and courses at OUM because of the hands-on experience that they gain in Samoa, and because the medical system there may be very different from what they may be used to or may be expecting. It's a lot of using your clinical reasoning in order to make diagnoses and treatment and management plans. And the doctors there are absolutely phenomenal and are really supportive of our OUM students and are geared towards your learning experience. Finally, OUM is about excellence. We have a motto around in pursuit of individual excellence. So we want each student to reach their excellent potential and to be excellent. And as a community, we support students in their individual pursuits. And as a community, we support each other to be excellent and to be excellent as a community. Our program is internationally accredited. You will be able to find us on the World Federation for Medical Education, the listing there, to ensure that it's going to meet the requirements that you need for licensure in your home country. So if you haven't done that research yet about OUM or about other medical schools you're looking at, we encourage you to go to the World Directory and ensure that your medical school is meeting the WFME requirements. We are really focused on producing not only competent and caring doctors, but also doctors who have a high degree of empathy and professionalism and bring their unique skills and talents to the practice of medicine, to the care of their patients. So that's a little bit about OUM that you may not find from just looking at YouTube or from our website, although you'll find a lot more details about our program and their components. So I do encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to visit those spaces, to follow us on social media and visit our website to gain a bit more information. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to you, Ms. Camille, to talk a little bit about our admission requirements. Please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Get myself off mute there. Thank you so much, Associate Professor. So let's talk about the admissions requirements. So these are our basic requirements, and if you have anything, do you have any questions on, you're always feel free to send a message to either Shanda and I, and we're happy to elaborate further. But for starters, you do need to have at least a bachelor's degree from an accredited institution. If you have higher degrees, great. We will need copies of all of those transcripts. You will need to have a competitive GPA of at least a 3.0 on a 4.0 scale or a 5.5 on the 7.0 scale or its equivalent. If your GPA falls a little bit outside of that range, again, you can always send an inquiry to either Shanda and I. We're happy to review your transcripts. We're happy to look some things over and see what we can do. Also, we have an English requirement, so applicants must meet English proficiency requirements. And usually that's covered, if you've studied in English before. So if your bachelor's degree was studied in English, that meets that requirement. Otherwise, there are quite a number of exams that you can take and send us for that. And then you also would need to be a resident of one of our 5 countries that we cover. So that would be the Aotearoa, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Samoa, and the United States, which includes American Samoa and the 5 territories.
And Camille, we have a question that was submitted from Ashley. And Ashley said, I'm worried about my grade point average GPA. How heavily weighted is prerequisite admission on GPA scores?
So we assess the applications holistically. So while a GPA does hold some weight in there, you can always make up for it in some other areas. So for example, if you have a background in healthcare, or you have a lot of STEM studies, if you have an excellent letters of recommendation or essay. So there are quite a few ways where we can make up for that GPA. It's always just best to reach out to us, and we're happy to review it with you.
Okay, no further submitted questions for this particular area. Ready to go on to the next slide?
All right.
Okay, here we go.
Now we can talk a little bit about the admissions process now. So as I've been saying, you're always welcome to reach out to one of your admissions counselors, either Shanda or myself. We love to talk to you. We love to talk about the program, and we are so happy to answer all of your questions. We are a wealth of information, and if we don't know the answer, we will find it for you. So always feel free to reach out to us. We want to talk to you. We also want to help make sure that you understand the commitment that will be going into, medical school. We want to make sure that you fully understand what the workload is going to look like and the time commitment and the financial commitment that's going to be coming up if you choose to apply at OUM. So we are here to help you realistically determine what that's going to look like. You can always start your application online. There's an apply now button on the right-hand corner of I'm sure every page of our website. You can click there and start your application. You can work on it over time, so you don't have to complete it all at once. And so you can start to collect all of your documents and work at your pace, as long as you are able to submit by the deadline. We have 2 intakes per year in January and July, when our deadlines for those is going to be September 1st, your application deadline, September 1st for the January intake. So that is going to be our next available intake as of now. And then March 1st for the July 2027 intake.
And we have a submitted
question here.
Yeah, we have a submitted question about the intake. I've just got to pull it up. Let's see. Okay. If I'm accepted, I would like to start in January pending finances. If I can't start at that time, can I start in July of 2027?
Yes, you are able to defer your acceptance once and only to the following intake. So if you are accepted for the upcoming January intake, but you still have some details to work out, then you are able to defer that application to the following one if need be.
And Bruno wants to know, how long does the process typically take from submitting a complete application to receiving an interview invitation and an admission decision?
So it usually takes from submitting your application after the deadline, so in this case, September 1st. After the deadline, Shanda and I will begin doing our admission or our application assessments. So we'll do those initial assessments. If you pass our initial requirements, then we will start setting up screening interviews. From there, we would move you forward if you successfully complete your screening interview to a panel interview. So I would say it usually takes about a month or two for from that deadline to get your final acceptance or denial answer.
Thanks, Camille. Okay, we're going to move to, I don't see any questions about the admissions process at this time, but if you think of them and you want to ask later, that's totally fine. We can come back to this, but for now, we'll move on to the next slide. But I also want to say, Camille, you're doing an amazing job. If you haven't been following our admissions webinars for all, Camille's been an admissions officer for a little bit of time, quite some time at OUM, but this is her first admissions webinar, and I think she's doing fabulously. So thanks so much, Camille. Okay, Shanda, over to you.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to talk about the document. So this is actually going to answer one of the Q&As we do have in the list about the essay. But first off, I'll start with the official transcripts. So we require all of your official transcripts from all of your tertiary studies. It doesn't matter if you completed the qualification. It doesn't matter if it was just a few individual units. We want to see everything. So we ask, please don't pick and choose what you want to show us, because we will find out anyway, usually, and we'll be asking for those transcripts later on. So make sure you include all of your tertiary studies. Now with how do you send us official transcripts? We usually use a verification service. So in the US, it's parchment.com, Canada, it's MyCreds, Australia and New Zealand, it's MyEquals. That's our preferred method of getting your transcripts because it's quite easy for both of us. But there are other ways to send us your transcripts. So if you're unsure, just reach out to your admissions counsellor and we will let you know the other ways that you can submit your documents. But those verification services are very easy. So send us your documents that way. And don't forget any, please. Otherwise, we will chase you up. So if for some reason your application has been submitted, but we do notice you're missing some, we will chase you up on that. So best not to have any delays there. So if you have studied overseas as well, so outside of our 5 countries that we've talked about a few times already, if you've studied overseas, we will need to see a degree evaluation. You may have obtained one through immigration to the country that you're in at the moment, but if not, just reach out again to your admissions counsellor because we can tell you how you can obtain that degree evaluation, and do that as soon as possible because sometimes they do take 8 weeks to get. So reach out to your admissions counsellor for that information. The next thing I'll talk about is letters of recommendation. We need 3 letters of recommendation, and one of them has to be from a medical doctor. On the application form, there are spaces for 4 references that you can put in. The 4th one is optional, although it does look like it's required. It is optional. You don't have to fill it in, but you can fill it in if you want to have a backup or if you do want to submit 4 letters of recommendation. Now, with those, we do collect those letters on your behalf because it's a bit of a conflict of interest if we get them from you directly. So what will happen is you'll enter your reference details into the application form. Once you pay the application fee, that is the trigger for us to send the request to your references to ask them for the letters. In the email that we send to your references, we do explain what we need as well. So you don't have to, let them know. We'll say what we need and then they can supply the letters and they can actually upload them directly to your application. At any time during the application process, you can check on how they're going. You can log into your application and check your reference page and go, oh, this one's been received, or it's been received and checked and it's approved. That's great. So you can see if you need to follow anyone up in particular. Now, if you see on your application that a letter's been received that morning and you go back in that afternoon and it's gone, don't panic. It just means that Camille and I have checked the letter and it doesn't quite meet our requirements. So we've sent it back to your reference to ask them for additional details. So that happens. And if it says it's received and it hasn't been checked off yet, it's just, just wait for us to double check it and tick it off. So, but yeah, you can check your application anytime for that. Now, I do get a lot of questions, and so does Camille, about the MD reference. Is it absolutely required? Yes. You do have to have a letter from an MD. You cannot submit your complete application without it. So the reason we ask for that is because our panelists value the insights of their professional peers who have been through medical school. So they use that MD letter to help them assess your potential for success in this rigorous medical program. So that's why we ask for it. It's really important. If you don't have a medical doctor that you can reach out to, contact Camille and I, and we'll give you some advice on what you might be able to do in that case. But yeah, we can't accept it from a PhD or your manager or anything like that. It does have to be from a medical doctor. All right. The next thing we'll talk about, and this will answer one of the questions we have, is about your personal essay. This is your chance to tell your story and tell us why you want to study medicine and why you want to be a doctor. It's just speak from the heart. We want to get to know you as a person. We don't want to get to know a computer, so don't use AI. Just honestly, speak from the heart in your essay and just explain your reasons and your motivations for wanting to be a doctor. I do encourage people to keep it to 2 pages because a lot of people read this essay and they're important. We don't want to take up too much of their time, so try not to make it too long. And finally, we also need your CV and resume detailing your education, work experience, and more. Again, that is because of our holistic assessment that Camille mentioned earlier. All of the documents mentioned in your checklist on your application are required for you to submit your application. So that includes all of the transcripts we talked about, the evaluations if they're required, the letters of recommendation, and so on. If you don't submit one of those documents, you can't submit your application. So please keep an eye on it. We also send many, many reminders about your application and how it's progressing by email and text. So there's no reason for you to not realize what's missing and what's happening on your application. So just keep an eye on things and make sure you submit your application by the deadline. All right, next slide, please. Unless we have any questions.
Oh, we have lots. You ready? Okay. First is from Anonymous. And then I have a couple of people with raised hands, so we'll do that too. And then there are a few other in the Q&A. Okay, so Anonymous says, I'm currently working on my personal statement for the January 2027 intake. Do you have any recommendations for what the admissions committee looks for in a strong personal statement, especially for applicants with significant healthcare experience?
Yeah. So just as I said, they just want you to talk from the heart. They want you to express your story and, why you're motivated to study medicine. Why do you want to study medicine? That's all they're really looking for. Just my biggest bit of advice is please don't use AI if you can help it. Polish maybe with AI, but don't get AI to write it because they want to get to know you as a person, not a computer.
That's the whole point of the personal essay. We don't want you to impress us. We want you to tell us who you are. So we know, oh, this is going to be a great fit for this person. Like you should want to be just as aware that it'll be a great fit for you as we will about you. And so mutually that should work. So it's very hard to assess that if you're not being forthcoming in your application, in your personal essay, or in your CV and resume. So just, speak from who you are. That's what we want. We don't want a cookie cutter person, what the best person looks like. We want to know about you. Okay. Tino Tenda says, if I'm a citizen of Australia, do I need to do an English test?
So, I have actually looked at your application because I saw this question come in. You don't have to do an English test because you have studied in an Australian institution or several. But for everyone else, if you are a citizen, but you've never studied in English before, yes, you may have to do an English test. But again, reach out to admissions, to Camille and I, and we'll help you determine whether you do need to sit a test or not.
Okay. Blarina, I see that you have your hand up. So I'm going to click a button that says allow to talk. And then it should allow you to unmute your microphone, and please go ahead with your question.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm Blarina Solaj from New York. And I am pre-med student. I finished my pre-med degree, but I have volunteering, but I do not have a letter of recommendation from MD, please. So.
Congratulations on finishing your pre-med requirements in your undergraduate degree. And I did see also someone had asked a question that's similar to this. So maybe we'll take care of these both at the same time. Nona wanted to know if the physician medical recommendation, can it be from my family doctor, or does it need to be from a practitioner that I know based on a professional relationship? So I'm assuming you mean like because you're just finished your degree that you don't have a professional relationship because you haven't worked in healthcare before. So what would our admissions team recommend to you for getting that letter of recommendation from a medical doctor or physician? And Nona wanted to know, could that be from their family doctor, for example?
Yes, it can be from the family doctor. If that's all you have, it won't score as highly because it'll be more like a character reference. But yes, we will accept one from your family doctor. What we normally suggest as well, if you don't have anyone at all in your life who could be the reference, we do suggest that you go and perhaps find work at a medical center near you, so you can see how doctors work and even shadow a doctor, and then you'll get more experience about what the role of a doctor is, and then you can also request a letter of recommendation from that particular doctor. So that can take time. So you may have to put your application off for 6 months or something like that, but that's our recommendation as well.
Tino says, I have my EQUAL and I have the transcripts from my EQUAL. Do I need to have them certified?
No. So My Equals is a verification service. So that is the official service that all universities in Australia and New Zealand use. So once you send it to us from that service, we can download it, and that's considered an official transcript. You don't have to go and get it certified, but you have to send it through that service for us.
Okay. There's lots of good questions in the Q&A, so I'm just checking if there's any more we want to address on this slide before we move on. I see Jody had their hand up, so I'm going to click a button now, Jody. And please go ahead and unmute yourself whenever you're ready with your question.
Thanks both. So I had a question related to a reference from an MD. Shanda, I've been in touch with you through email regarding this. So I've been in contact with a couple of doctors, actually a few doctors who allow shadowing of people who are currently students registered in a university, or they are overseas trained doctors and they are registered under APRA. So they're registered, under a board. However, when I've been to these several doctors, they've all mentioned the same thing, which is you're not a student, you're not registered under a APRA or any other boards. There is a concern with the confidentiality and privacy of patients in terms of shadowing. And in your email, you mentioned that to understand what the life of a physician is, what they do, and I guess get a feel for what their day-to-day thing is, life is like. The doctors that after seeing the email, the doctors who I talked to, she just said, well, you can be in the reception and just, I guess, follow, observe and see what you're doing. So that's the extent of the response that I received from the doctors. I'm not sure how I can go beyond that because most of the times the doctor is working, one-on-one with patients. And that's the bulk of their time. And if I'm not allowed in their room whilst they're seeing the patients, I'm not sure how else I can navigate this, how else we can, get a more closer experience with a physician.
Yeah, sometimes you can't. Sometimes the doctors won't allow shadowing, as you said, and that's fine. I think working as a medical receptionist is a perfectly good alternative. You'll get to see multiple doctors, in fact, seeing what they do, seeing the patients come up and talk about why they're there, etc. So I think that's a good alternative, and hopefully you'll be able to have a chat with the doctors, even just 2 minutes in the hallway sort of thing, and then you'll have a better understanding of what a doctor does every day, and hopefully one of them can then also, recommend you or write a reference letter for you based on that.
Yeah, they're very willing to write a reference and help wherever they can. Okay, that gives a sort of an insight. Thanks for that.
I sort of even like the experience that you have had, Jody, in this process where like you learned a little bit about like how strict doctors are in terms of protecting their patients' privacy and confidentiality, like how important that is to them as professionals. So even though you maybe weren't in the room with patients with those particular doctors, you as part of this experience, you've gained a little bit of a window into the job of a doctor. So I would encourage you to think about that as having an experience, shadowing a physician, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, very true. The other concern that they had was their liability, insurance not covering the liability of a third person in the room or around their office. So I'm not sure if you have any advice on that, and I'm happy to chat to you on email as well about that.
Yeah, I don't have any advice about the third-party insurance. I mean, our students have third-party insurance, but not our applicants, obviously. So yeah, that would be something to work out with the doctor's office. Like maybe perhaps you can volunteer on the reception and that might cover you insurance-wise. But
okay.
Otherwise, yeah. I mean, I'm happy to chat by email too.
Thank you.
Folasade, I see that you, or maybe it's Folashade, I see that you have your hand raised as well. So I'm going to click a button that's going to allow you to unmute yourself. And if you'd like to ask your question, please go ahead.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for the head-ups. I want to ask about the cost implication, the finance. This program altogether, how much is it? Is there a portion or part of it that is being subsidized? And I know some schools, not sure whether medical or not, some schools do give discounts to some people on some occasions. So I want to know how that goes. Then, besides that, when it comes to payment, if one gets into the school, how is there a way one can make those payments that would be easy on the person that is going through the program?
So it's something that we care a lot about because we want students to be aware of their financial obligations in entering the program. And we don't want students to be going into debt or having to pause their studies because they aren't aware of the costs or what their financial obligations are for the program. So the way that we provide that information, and Shanda, you might want to interrupt me or tell me I'm wrong, but we do have information on the website that tells the cost per credit for each country. So if you are in Aotearoa, New Zealand, it'll give you the cost per credit in NZ dollars. And if you are in Canada, it'll give you the cost per credit in Canadian dollars. And then it tells you the number of credits that we have. In addition to the cost per credit that you will see on the website currently, we do have CPI increases in our tuition that occur each year, and we can't predict what the CPI increase will be because no one can predict what the consumer price index will be until it is published. So we go by what the published consumer price index is for each of the countries that we serve, and then you'll see changes in the credit point cost based on the CPI each year. And that is published and available in September and then goes into effect in January of the following year. In addition to our credit points, there are fees associated with the degree. So all of the traditional fees that you might see separately, like library fees, that sort of thing for the degree are all rolled up into the credit points. But there are behavioral fees, like if you make late payments, for example, you have a late payment fee. If you lose your student card, you have to pay a fee. You get your first student card is free. If you lose it, you have to pay a cost for that. And then additionally, in the clinical period, many, if not most clinical sites are now charging students for the pleasure of their company during their clinical rotations. We don't have control over what the clinical rotation fees are because they're charged by each site. So that's not included in the tuition cost for the program. We do have 3 different methods by which students are able to pay for their credit points. So you're able to purchase credits, single credit points whenever you like. We also have students who are on monthly plans, and we also have students who will purchase the entire year's worth of credits in advance. That's a fairly irregular option, but that option is available. For students who are entering the university, there's a fee to start the General Principles, which is your first course, as well as your first 2 research credits. So it's a cost of, I believe, 10-ish? No, it's the equivalent of 10 credits, but it is not the equivalent of 10 credit points. So all that is to say, if you started to glaze over and get a little bit confused or a little bit doughy-eyed when I was talking about that, I'm just simply repeating information that our Chief Financial Officer and Bursar provides as part of a separate webinar we have, which is about financial implications and how to plan financially for the costs that are associated with this degree. So if you need that information, toot sweet, we do have a recording from the last time we did that webinar, which was earlier this spring if you're in North America, or fall if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. And not next month, but the month after. So coming up in September, we have another webinar with our Chief Financial Officer to talk a little bit more about fees, and she'll take questions and answers about the costs associated with the degree. So all that is to say, we try to be as transparent as possible about what the tuition and fees are going to be. There are some outside factors that we account for as part of our ongoing tuition fee structure that we don't have control over, so we can't provide a specific amount for the total degree because it will depend on what the consumer price index is. So we think that's pretty transparent compared to some of the other degrees that are out there, but it does often cause prospective students to have questions. So that's why we have that webinar. And if you have questions about your financial situation or your specifics of that, you can always get in touch with the admissions counselor directly with our bursar and CFO. Shanda, what have I forgotten that you also want to mention?
I just saw that Tino has another question about HECS in Australia, and I just wanted to answer that briefly. That no, our students are not eligible for HECS or fee help in Australia because we are a Samoan institution. So our students aren't eligible for it. So you do have to be able to pay for the program out of pocket.
And I'd like to chime. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, please go ahead, Camille.
I'd like to chime in on the North American side there as well, that we do not qualify for any of the financial aid or government loans like FAFSA because we are an international institution. So for the US side of things.
And prospective students will often have questions about how our current students pay and finance their degrees. So we will have webinars as well where we have our student ambassadors attend. And those questions are typically asked of them, and they're very forthcoming about their particular means and methods for how they finance their degree. The one thing that I actually really appreciate about our fee structure and the way that our students go about paying for their degree is that they're not mortgaging their future by taking on a whole lot of debt in order to finance their degree. So they're not basically causing their future self to have to pay down everything that is costing them now. There's lots of different ways that our students finance their degrees. So I encourage you to think about, what that might look like for you on an ongoing basis, what that might look like for the current resources that you have and your financial picture going forward over the next 4 years. And also to think about what your salary will be as a clinician. And if that's if you want to make sure that you're in good financial standing. We don't want anyone to be discouraged by costing factors, but it's good to go into it knowing what this is going to look like. We don't want you to be or feel financially strained throughout the degree. We want your biggest stressor to be knowing and learning all of the information that you need for your upcoming exam, or committing to the time to research the disease state that your preceptor told you that you needed to look into overnight and they were going to ask you questions about in the morning. We want those to be your stressors, not finances. Okay, there are some more questions, but let's move on to our next slide and we'll continue to answer questions from the Q&A as well as from any students that are, or prospective students that was hopeful me talking, prospective students that are raising their hands. So Ms. Shanda, please go ahead when you're ready.
So we'll talk about the application interview process. Camille touched on this briefly before. So applications are assessed quickly after the deadline, which is why we don't accept late or incomplete applications, because we have to move very quickly after the deadline. Usually within about 2 weeks, we've assessed the applications. So you should hear what happens next within that 2 weeks. If your application is successful, you'll be invited to attend a screening interview with the admissions counsellor. At that interview, we discuss your application, your motivations, your academic history, and also we cover your understanding of the program, and we just like to make sure that we're all on the same page about everything. So we will cover tuition and fees, rotations, and your commitment to the program and the commitment that's required, etc. So we'll discuss that in depth. If that interview goes well, we move then on to the panel interview, and the panel interview are the ones who will determine if you are eligible for admission. One of the wonderful things about our program is you don't have to wait for all of the cohort to be assessed and go through that process before you find out. Generally, you'll find out within a week after the panel interview if you have been accepted into the program. So you don't have to wait that long. So hopefully, you'd know sometime in October or early November whether you've been accepted. And then after that, you've got to start working on your post-acceptance documents, which we will cover at length as well. So lots of communication coming out of admissions. So if you do have any more questions about the application process or anything we've mentioned, reach out to us. We're here to answer all of your questions. And that's it from this slide.
Thanks, Shanda. Matthew wants to know, is there a requirement to have pre-med coursework completed in order to apply and be admitted? And in other words, if your bachelor's degree is a non-science related field and do not have science coursework completed, can you still apply and be admitted?
Yes, you can. You do not need to have a healthcare degree to apply. We actually have no requirements on the degree that you can come in with. Obviously, it has to be completed, though. You can't submit an incomplete application. So if you're studying now and you won't get your documents until December, you won't be able to apply for January. You'll need to apply for July. But no, don't need to have any specific degree. I mean, surely it would help you. Having science or medical background will assist you in the program, but you don't have to have that.
We do have a course that comes at the very beginning of your degree called General Principles. And that course is well named. It's really about the general principles of science that you need in order to apply those to your systems courses, cardiovascular system, urinary system, endocrine system, etc. So it does really help if you've taken science classes in the past. We do have students who don't have a non-science related degree, don't have the full set of pre-med coursework. Maybe they've taken some science classes, or maybe the science classes that they've taken have been a while ago. And often those students will ask, is there like material that I should review in advance? Are there like books and textbooks? We don't recommend anything specifically for doing well in general principles or moving forward. It certainly does help if you have that background to start, but it doesn't necessarily give you a leg up over people who don't have that level of experience. So I would say that knowing what you are getting into, like having a little bit of experience poking around what some of those concepts are, knowing that getting to know whether you would be comfortable in that or you even really want to learn about that would be important, because if you get into medical school and then realize, I actually hate science, I don't want to know anything about a cell, then you've kind of put yourself back when it would be better to kind of just check and see, do interests lie there? Can you see yourself learning about this and applying it in the medical field over the next 2, 4, 6, 8, 20 years? So I would say that would be helpful. I think there was one other question about the application process. Oh, Ursula wanted to know, I've done a lot of school for healthcare and business, and I've done a fellowship. Do I have to send all transcripts, or can I only send the ones related to healthcare? I just look at Shanda. I'm like, what is Shanda going to say to this?
We want to see them all, don't we, Camille? Everything. We want to see everything.
Yes, we do. And we'll be going through your transcripts. And if we see any transfer credits that aren't listed on your application, we will be emailing you for that institution's transcript as well. So all transcripts, please.
Okay. And Naji, I see you asked a question in the Q&A, but you also have your hand raised. So I'm going to click the Allow to Talk button. If you have a question that you'd like to ask us live, please go ahead when you're ready.
Hello, sorry about that. Yeah, I think someone asked a similar question, but I am near completion of a business degree, and I was asking if I needed to have medical credit or like a medical degree to follow it up with, but I think you already answered that question to the other person.
No, you don't. Just to be clear, no, you do not need a medical degree for this degree. Okay, I've muted myself instead of clicking the slide. Shanda, is there anything else that you'd like to say before we move on to the next?
I saw a question at the bottom for No about what happens after graduation, about whether or not we have to take, our Australian students anyway, have to take extra exams. And I just wanted to say, yes, they do. I'm sure we'll cover this later, but yes, our students do have to usually do other exams. Well, Australian students and New Zealand students at least have to take exams after graduation. So you do have to take the Australian Medical Council exam, AMC1, and then you need to organise your own internship. But happy to answer those sorts of questions as well after this if we don't get to them later on.
Okay, great. Thanks, Shanda. Okay, OUM curriculum. Oh, I love seeing our students at their CTUs, which is what's pictured here, our clinical transition units. Okay, so our curriculum at OUM is broken into 3 phases: a preclinical phase, a clinical transition phase, and a clinical phase. So the preclinical phase is what we would like lovingly refer to as the time where you are having to drink medical information from a fire hose, because you are learning just incredible volumes and amounts of information about each of the body's systems in order to support your learning and the patient care that you will be providing or learning about in your clinical rotations. So in the preclinical phase, we have live, interactive, instructor-led, student-focused virtual classrooms, and we also have lectures that are provided as recordings that you also get the slide decks and notes on. Those recordings are also interactive. You can go back to particular areas of the recording. You can make clips and notes and etc. And those are accessible to you throughout your preclinical course. At the end of the preclinical phase, if you are a student in North America, you will move into the clinical transition phase and work on preparation for your USMLE Step 1. If you are a student in Samoa, Aotearoa, New Zealand, or Australia, you will move out of the preclinical phase by taking our preclinical exam, which is an examination that covers all of the systems that you've just learned about. And it's a really exciting time for our preclinical students, because like all of that information that you've spent the last couple of years learning is like all culminating in you being able to know and access that information at one time point. It's just an incredible thing for students to get through. And then in their clinical transition phase, both our students from every geographic location will take 2 clinical transition units. Those are both 8-week courses that prepare students to transition to the clinical rotations. So they cover things like medical ethics and professionalism, and there are modules about each and every type of clinical core rotation that you would take. So there's a module on family medicine, there's a module on internal medicine, there's a module on pediatrics, for example. And at the end of the clinical transition phase, there is an in-person component where you learn and practice your clinical skills. So you can see some of our recent students at their clinical transition unit practicing their clinical skills in the pictures here. At the end of your clinical transition phase, you take a knowledge assessment, you take an in-person exam to show off your newly learned clinical skills. And that exam is not intended to make sure that you know every clinical skill that you need to know as a doctor, but rather to know that you are safe to enter your clinical rotations. Then you will move into the clinical phase, which includes your core and elective rotations and clinical exams, logbooks, and case studies. Each of our core rotations includes components where you are in clinic or on site in a hospital working with your clinical rotation supervisor and their team to learn about common and uncommon conditions in that particular field. You also have required readings, practice examinations, exams, writing up of logbooks. So you make a log of all the patients that you've seen, the different types of cases, and you write up a few case studies of interesting patients that you've gotten to see with common or uncommon conditions. So really getting that into the nitty-gritty of what doctors do on a day-to-day basis. You have an opportunity to select elective rotations. So there are 4 different elective rotations. So you can select those based on your interest fields that you want to explore, that you might be interested in going into after the completion of your medical degree. During the clinical phase, you're taking those core and elective rotations in your home country, except for one of your rotations, which you will take at TTM Hospital in Samoa. So you also get a chance to choose the rotation that you would like to take in Samoa. You get to choose, with some caveats, the timing that you would like to go and take your rotation in Samoa. A really popular rotation there is OBGYN or OBS and Gynae, because students have a lot of hands-on experience delivering babies and working with obstetric and gynecologic patients, hands-on experience they wouldn't gain by taking that rotation in their home hospitals. So at the culmination of the clinical phase, our students take a final clinical exam, which is a multiple choice exam, and they take an OSCE, an objective structured clinical examination, where they're basically having mock patient actors, and they have to make a diagnosis and come up with a treatment plan, run relevant investigations, so on and so forth. So it sounds like it's pretty straightforward, but what I want to tell you is that you'll have a lot of ups and downs from the preclinical phase into the clinical and transition phase and into the clinical phase. It's a highly structured program, but we have students with all different kinds of backgrounds and all different kinds of needs. So sometimes that path is very straightforward. Sometimes there are lots of up and downs. Sometimes there are sideways path, and then you have to come back and into. And sometimes that is for personal reasons, and sometimes that's for reasons in your environment that's beyond your control. So at other medical schools, there's a lot of inflexibility for when you have personal or environmental needs. At OUM, we are really focused on ensuring that when you enter the program, that you complete the program. So we have lots of supports in place that ensure when you are hitting those lows or going off on tangents, that we're able to bring you back into the fold and get you along the right path for academic progression, which is also not a common strategy at other medical schools. If you go off the prescribed path, there often isn't a path or a way for you to get back on. That's not how we operate. We are here to support you and your individual excellence and your academic progress. So the main thing is that we need students, particularly in the preclinical phase, but also in the CTU, the clinical transition units in the clinical phase, to identify when they are going off the path, when they are having different needs in their personal or environmental situations, so that we can provide you with the path back. We can support you on an individual basis. So if you want to know a little bit more about our curriculum, what it's like to be in the preclinical phase, what it's like to be in the clinical phase, I encourage you to come to our next webinar. I'll be going through this in a lot more detail, and also we'll have some of our student ambassadors there to talk with you about what their personal experience has been in the preclinical, the clinical transition phase, as well as the clinical phase. That's coming up in August. Just seeing if there's any curriculum-based questions. Not at this time, so I will go on to what a sample daily plan is. So it's really important that not only are you prepared to and excited about learning all the medical sciences and all of the art of providing clinical care, is that you also have strong executive functioning skills and are aware of where you have gaps in your executive functioning skills and are interested in developing those further. A lot of what is needed in a medical degree is just sticking with it, putting one foot in front of the other. When you feel like you can't take a step, finding some way to make a step forward. So we really encourage our students to think about what it would look like for them on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis, on a month-to-month basis, on a yearly basis, and over the rest of the course of their life. Really think about how this will impact your life, the amount of time that you need to devote in order to be successful and to get through a program like this, and how that kind of fits with your personal and professional goals in your lifetime. So in terms of thinking about it on a daily or a weekly basis, we really encourage students to be really structured about this, to get a true assessment of how much time they actually need. So being in medical school is just like being at a full-time job. It's like 40 to 50 hours a week of work. So we encourage all of our students to ensure they are getting at least 8 hours of sleep, because this is not a 100-meter dash. This is an ultra marathon. Sleep and ensuring you remain in good physical health is incredibly important. So we encourage all students as part of their daily plan to ensure they're getting 8 hours of sleep. We also want to ensure that when you enter medical school as a unique and complete person, that when you are in medical school, you are a unique and complete person, and you continue to pursue the things in life that make you happy and a whole, complete, and unique person. So you should continue your routines for physical and mental health and spiritual activities. If you have a spiritual practice, you should continue to strengthen and have bonds with friends and families and activities that are important to you. However, it may be that the time that you currently have to spend on all of those activities is less when you are in medical school than you currently have now. And that is okay, but it's good to know that going in, that I'm going to have to schedule that time. I'm going to have to be really careful about the amount of time that I commit myself to, because in addition to having to sleep 8 hours, and to maintaining myself as a whole and unique person, I'm going to need to study at least 8 hours a day. This is just like my full-time job. So that's going to be, I'm going to have like 8 study blocks. And in addition to that, I also have class time. I have to plan for how I'm getting through a course and how I'm approaching the material. I have to have some extra study time right before examinations, or right before I'm turning in my logbooks and case studies. I'm going to have to plan some time to meet with my study group. So I may have between 8 and 10 hours a day of focused work on my medical degree. And then you maybe now in your time, you are done work at 5 o'clock and you go to bed at 10 and you have 5 hours of self-time. In medical school, you may only have an hour of time to yourself. So it's really important that you think about this structure and think about if you have the discipline and wherewithal to complete a schedule such as this. We mentioned the preclinical curriculum earlier. So this study plan is based on the preclinical curriculum. We have classes that are live on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They are at 8 to 10 p.m. North American Eastern Standard Time, and 8 to 10 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, or Brisbane time. So in general principles, this includes a workshop, a case discussion, and a lecture chat, which is kind of like a review and practice questions. And in your other classes, there's very focused discussion. There's doctor-patient scenarios. There's discussion of particular cases that are developed with high-yield diseases in particular areas. There are workshops that are designed to help you know how to approach and answer questions that you'll get from your preceptors in the clinical rotation period, for example. So our classes are not mandatory to attend. However, an important part of our degree is the development of communication, collaboration, and professionalism skills. And all of those are assessed and graded via your attendance at and participation in those live classes. And there are some additional supports to help you develop those skills as well. So make sure when you're thinking about undertaking this degree, you can consider, am I able to go to class at 8 to 10 p.m. 3 days a week, or from if you're in or whether I'm able to attend the other hemispheres classes and go early in the morning. It's important for you to think about and plan for that. And then when you are in clinical rotations, am I able to plan for being at a clinical site from 9 to 5 or 9 to 4 each day? Am I able to travel to sites in order to get the best educational experience or to ensure that my degree is more seamless? So those are kinds of things that are important to think about in your sample daily plan. Joan wanted to know, I love to walk and I'm wondering if I could organize listening to materials away from the desk so that I can combine physical movement, perhaps an hour a day, with my learning process. I love this, Joan, and I highly encourage you to do this and anybody else that also likes movement along with their learning. So you have recorded lectures and readings that are associated with each of your week's material as well. So that those kinds of things would be excellent for walks. Our textbooks for every class are all available in our library called Clinical Key and Clinical Key Student. And in Clinical Key Student, you can just tap a button and the book will be read to you. So you don't have to sit at your computer screen and read the book. You can have the book read to you if you'd like. And also the lectures can be listened to as well. So you don't have to be constantly in front of a screen if you also like to add movement into your practice. Anonymous wants to know, are the classes recorded? So if you can't make the class, you can go back on them and watch and study. Absolutely. All of our classes are recorded, just like our webinars. If you want to come back to the webinar and you're like, oh, Camille said something really interesting and I just wanted to go back to that. I wasn't totally sure of that information. I want to go back. Same thing with your live classes. All of those are recorded. So you can go back to them throughout the class. When you're studying for your exams or when you're working through concepts with your study group, you have those recordings available to you. Anonymous wants to know, in live class and tests, exams, so thinking about the library, is turning on your camera and microphone mandatory? It is not mandatory. However, when you're thinking about communication and professionalism, it is highly encouraged for you to have your camera on, and you'll have to turn on your microphone if you're speaking in class, which you absolutely will, because you'll be part of a discussion. Do you have to have it on the entire time? No. We have students who have all kinds of living situations, all kinds of people living in their house. And sometimes people are like, oh, like my dog is barking, or like I have a child crying in the background. I've been teaching a class and had a child crying in the background. So it's all okay. We are a welcoming community and family. So it's okay if you are, speaking and trying to contribute in class and you happen to have, a cat jump onto your lap and you feel embarrassed that a cat tail is like flicking you in the face while you're trying to talk, that's okay too. So it is not mandatory, but we do encourage students to prepare for that kind of thing, because when you are in your clinical rotations, for example, you'll be there live as well. Anonymous want to know how are exams conducted. So all of the examinations are conducted online. We have an online proctor called HonorLock, and we have an online test invigilation system called Riser. So if you're really interested in the tech around that, you can look those up and go down a rabbit hole if you wish, but that basically enables you to take your exams from your study space. We require all of our students to have an external webcam in order to ensure that our examination integrity is upheld and that you are, not being you don't have any issues where people might think that you're not being complete integrity taking the exam. That webcam covers that to ensure that you have an examination environment that's free from any materials that would lead to issues with your examination. Okay, I'm going to move off our sample daily plan and talk a little bit about our student support services. I want to encourage you again to go to the website to learn a little bit more about our student services. I'm going to talk about two of them today, but I do want to just harp on this point that we are really interested in supporting students as individuals and providing them personalized support. So we have a number of kind of ad hoc web-based resources that are available for you to kind of pick and choose what you need. And then we also have one-to-one individualized supports that you can make use of that don't have any extra costs or extra time commitments for you as part of your degree. So we are really wanting to make sure that students are being proactive in their planning for their academic progression and their planning for how they are successful in completing each class. We want to make sure that even though in the first part of the degree that students are studying from their home or home countries, that they're connected to the community as a whole. So we have a number of virtual and in-person events for our students to connect with each other and with our faculty and leadership. And we also have a number of supports to support accountability to self and others. So a couple of our support services are one, our student ambassadors, who I mentioned a bit earlier today. If you want to speak to someone about their personal experience, there's a list of some of our student ambassadors here. You can reach out to an admissions counselor to get hooked up with someone that maybe like you have a particular situation and you tell your admissions counselor, I really like to speak with another student who has a similar situation. They can connect you with someone that's specific to that. If you're interested in speaking to a student ambassador about the preclinical program or about the clinical program, or if you want to speak to someone that's in your geographic area, we can support you to do that. So you can reach out directly to your admissions counselor. You can reach out to our admissions office. The email is there. You can reach out to the student ambassadors as a whole, and you can identify an individual that you would like to connect with when you email the admissions and student ambassadors, or you can just ask generally to be connected with someone. Our second student support program that I wanted to talk about today is our Student Success Advisor program. And this is where students, if they would like, we've matched with a Student Success Advisor who is a faculty member that provides them an individual support throughout the duration of their degree. So they'll work with you on your study habits and your time management, particularly when you first get started. Even though I was speaking a lot about like the study schedule and executive skills, sometimes it's hard to know and figure that out fully until you're immersed in it. So the SSAs are there to help you once you've got a handle on what's happening. They can provide you some individual supports that are specific to your situation. They can help you plan. They can help connect you with other areas of the university. Like, oh, I'm not really sure like about my payment plan and I was having some trouble like looking into my account. You can ask your SSA and they'll direct you. But a main thing is that they're your person throughout your degree if you need them. There's no requirements for meeting with them at any specific frequency. And there's no costs associated with this program. It's included in your degree. So I do encourage students, if they would like to have a one-to-one support, to be a part of this program and to have an SSA. The only requirement is that if you do make an appointment with your personal SSA, that you have to show up to that appointment or you have to cancel it with 24 hours notice, because we want to ensure that we're being professional and courteous and communicative with the people that we work with in our community. Okay, so we're going to move on to answering some of the questions that we haven't yet got to in our Q&A. And if there are areas that you haven't had a chance to see yet in our presentation or some questions that you wanted to go back to, now's the time. So the last session that we had a wonderful discussion at the end, but we just did not have enough time. So we've added some additional time to this session in order to answer these questions. And I do see we have a lot open still in our Q&A. So let's do what we can now, Ms. Shanda and Ms. Camille, and see how many of these we can challenge ourselves to see how many of these we can answer. Okay, so Ruth wants to know, they're curious about working with cadavers. I have several degrees and have been working on medical prerequisites like anatomy and physiology and microbiology. I have not worked with cadavers. Do you work with cadavers? We use a program called Complete Anatomy. This program is used in all of our preclinical classes, and some of our clinical classes make use of it as well. Many medical schools, whether they have online classes or not, are transitioning away from the use of cadavers to providing more sustainable solutions. So if you're interested in kind of how you would learn anatomy at OUM, I do believe you can do previews and do free trials of Complete Anatomy. So I encourage you to just if you're interested in anatomy and physiology in particular, I encourage you, Ruth, or anyone else, to have a look at that program. You can see some of the videos, the 3D. You can actually manipulate it in 3 dimensions. It gives you additional information about each body part that you click on. The stuff with the endocrine system is absolutely amazing. That's what I teach in Complete Anatomy. So have a look at that. There's no additional cost for Complete Anatomy as part of your degree. It's worked into your tuition, so we don't charge an additional fee for that. Okay. Camille and Chanda, this one is a big one. Anonymous has 5 questions, so let's see how we do. The first one, can science prerequisites be completed online or hybrid?
We don't have any science prerequisites.
Okay.
So
if you have science prerequisites and you've completed them online or hybrid, that's fine. But we don't have any prerequisites that you have to complete. Okay. For clinical rotations, do you help arrange those near where we live? You guys want to start with that, or do you want me to?
Camille, I'll let you go first.
Okay. So we have a Dean of Australia and North America, and we have a Dean for Aotearoa, New Zealand, Samoa, and American Samoa. In addition to that, we also have a director for clinical training in Australia. So those are the offices that support our clinical rotations in all of the countries that we serve. So yes, we help arrange those where you live. We don't make any guarantees that you will be able to rotate in the area where you live, nor should you expect to complete all of your clinical rotations in the area where you live. You should expect to travel during your clinical rotations. One more thing that I wanted to say about that is, no, I'm going to go to the third. Well, do you anything to add, Shanda or Camille? Nope.
Just that being open to traveling for those rotations is essential when you're applying for the program, because you might not get somewhere in your state where you live, or you might not get all of your rotations there. So just being open to it is key.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And
in Australia, sorry, we do have a dedicated team for the clinical rotations. So you don't have to arrange your own, but you do have to be prepared to travel Australia extensively. And all of our students have to go to Samoa, as we said earlier.
Yeah. And our Samoan students do all of their rotations where they live, because they can do all their rotations at TTM Hospital. That did remind me what I wanted to say, because Omar had also asked where are the hospitals in West Virginia where we can rotate. And we will always get questions in our webinars like, do you have rotations in this state? Do you have rotations in this area? So we do not guarantee, particularly at the prospective student stage, a specific location for rotations, because we are constantly gaining new rotations and creating new areas for our students to rotate, and those will change over time. So it wouldn't be fair for me to say, yes, Omar, we have this rotation in this area of West Virginia today on July 23rd, 2026. And then when you're in your rotations in July 23rd, or going into your rotations in July 23rd, 2029, you're like, well, I wanted to go to West Virginia, and we now have different sites available for you. So we tell students not to plan for certain areas or financially arrange to be in certain areas. What you should plan for is flexibility and travel during your clinical rotations. Is there only one clinical rotation in Samoa? You have options for the types of clinical rotations in Samoa. Your requirement for your degree is that you must complete one 4-week rotation in Samoa, but there are different types of rotations that you can take, and you can take longer than 4 weeks or more than one rotation in Samoa if you wish. Shanda or Camille, how many interviews are held in the admissions process for each applicant? And is there an age limit to join the program? Are there any students that are 60 plus?
Go ahead and cover these. So for interviews for the admissions process, generally there are two. There will be your screening interview and your panel interview. But on occasion, you might have to take a second panel interview. So generally 3 or 2, sometimes 3. And as far as an age limit for the program, I don't like to tell applicants there's really no age limit to pursue your dream. If you've always wanted to be a physician, we've had applicants, 50, 60 plus, as long as you are able to meet the technical standards and you're up for it.
And we have students or graduates that are 60 plus as well.
Exactly.
Shanda, did you want to add anything to that?
No, Camille did amazing.
She did. You're doing amazing too, Shanda, by the way, but you always are. Okay, Nona wants to know, how long can I start with documentation verification from countries that are outside countries you cover, and what's the process?
Okay, so if you've got transcripts from overseas in Australia and New Zealand, you can get them certified by a Justice of the Peace and send them to me by email, and I will accept those. But you also need to get your evaluation done for any overseas qualifications, and I can provide you with our list of approved verification or evaluation services. So feel free to reach out to me by email.
And I'd like to.
Yeah, please go ahead, Camille. Go ahead.
To touch on that one as well. So for the US, for those assessments, we usually use WES in the United States and Canada. And it can take a couple of weeks to receive those assessments or have them done. It does need to be a course by course evaluation. So the sooner you can get that started, the better. If you have ECE evaluations done, those are physically mailed to us, which can really take some extra time to your application. So the sooner the better. Don't leave that one. Don't put that one off. You can get those rolling today. I would recommend it.
Thanks, Camille and Shanda. Leonie sent in a question. My references for letters of recommendations are from my home country. Do they have to send in the letter of recommendation physically through the mail? And what do I do if my references are not proficient in English?
Never had that question before, so they're not proficient in English. So for the first part, if they upload it directly to your application, so hopefully they can have that ability to do that. Otherwise, someone may need to give them a hand. We do need it electronically. If it comes through the post, it's going to slow everything down. It's just easier if they can upload it, and it's quite an easy process. They get an email, there's a link, they click it, they upload their letter. Very straightforward. Well, I guess the letter has to be in English, just because that's what we speak. We're an English-speaking institution. I suppose we could figure out if we can get it translated, but it would be better for us and all of our panelists if it could be in English.
And if they speak English, but you're worried about their proficiency, we're not going to grade the letter based on their level of English. I think that's fine too. Bruna says, I've already submitted my official transcripts, but I'm completing another bachelor's degree this August. Oh, go Bruna. Will I need to send an updated final transcript once the degree is conferred, or are my current transcripts sufficient for application review? Thanks.
Bruna, I believe we've spoken before. So yes, I would prefer if you would send an updated transcript with that conferred degree on it once you receive it, so we can add it into your final assessment or application assessment.
Okay, I think we're doing really good getting through these. Okay, but just more keep coming in, so we'll see. Navina wants to know, I guess you will shortly let us know the duration of course degree, including internship, and the estimate fees towards attainment of the award. So the estimated duration of the degree is 4.5 to 5 years. depending on if you are in North America, the time that you take for preparation of USMLE Step 1 and Step 2, because we provide a little bit of flexibility on that. And depending on your clinical rotations, your electives, and where and when you're going to Samoa, it may be more or less. We've had students complete it faster, and we've had students complete it longer. Whether you complete it in a shorter time period or a longer time period, it does not change like the estimated cost for your degree, other than the changes to the consumer price index that you'll pay for credits purchased in later years. Vivek wanted to know, are hybrid programs accepted in California Medical Board given basic sciences are online? Camille, do you have information specific to California, or do you want me to cover?
I do. So California used to be pretty strict about this, but recently, past few years, they've lessened up quite a bit. So you are able to, but I always recommend to reach out to the California Medical Board yourself just to make sure and get the most updated information. While I try to have the most updated information, checking in on all 50 states every month is a task. So if you're able to, I would recommend it to confirm.
Thanks. And that goes for every state in the US and each province in Canada and each state in Australia as well. You want to check it would be APRA rather than each state in Australia. Pull that back. But you want to check for any program that you're applying into that's going to meet the licensure requirements for the area that you hope to practice. Anonymous want to know, can the credit point price increase or decrease throughout the degree? If so, how variable? So the credit point price will increase each year with the consumer price index for each country. So that consumer price index, I believe, comes out in August or September, and we will provide an announcement to the entire university community, as well as we'll make the changes on our website in September. When that's finalized, we will update it based on the consumer price index. However, that will be like September of 2026 will give you the credit point price for January of 2027. So students will have a few months in advance. Sometimes students will purchase credit points, like for example, in December of 2026 at the 2026 price before they're going into their classes in January 2027. So we do allow you, for a class that's in 2027, you can purchase the credits for that class in 2026 at the 2026 price, for example. So I can't answer how variable because I don't know how the consumer price index will vary each year. It depends on the CPI. Let's see. Anonymous wanted to know, can you go through the letter of recommendation and what is to be outlined? So are there any specific requirements in the letters of recommendation that prospective students need to know about and communicate to their references?
Yeah, so like I said, we do send them an email saying what we require, and it's usually just how they know you and why they would recommend you for medical school. What are your attributes that they would, speak to, etc. So just, how they know you and why they would recommend you for medical school. But it is also included in the email. So as soon as you pay your application fee, you should warn your references that an email will be coming from OUM, and that'll have everything they need on it and how to upload it.
This is a good one for you, Shanda, because you do all our statistics for incoming classes. Ursula wants to know, how many students do you admit into your cohorts?
We had 57 for July 2026. And I think it was actually very similar. I think we had 58 for January 2026 as well. So it's a small cohort, but that makes us have that personal approach that you're coming to OUM for. We know our students' names. You'll get to know everyone on the faculty, etc. So small cohorts, but we don't have a quota either, in case that sends panic through anyone at the moment. There's no quota. So please, if you submit an application, you will be assessed. So
Okay, I think we've got time for maybe two more. So No and Anonymous were asking a little bit about clinical rotations. So during clinical rotations in Australia, does your program assist students in securing clinical placement sites or is it the student's responsibility to arrange their own clinical placements? And how does the uni support with clinical rotations and internships?
So in Australia, we have that team dedicated to organising the clinical rotations, so they will do that for you. Be prepared to travel. In regards to internships, we don't organise them for you. They are after you graduate, and it is reliant on you passing the AMC 1 exam. So you graduate. We do have a prep program for AMC. You will take that prep program, sit AMC, pass it, and then you'll need to organise your own internship. So for Australia and New Zealand, what we say there is you need to treat each rotation like a job interview. You're going to show them how professional you are, how wonderful you are, how amazing you are, and you're going to build contacts at that point. And then once you pass your AMC 1, you're going to start calling those contacts to organise an international medical graduate internship.
And Camille, did you want to speak on that at all for North America?
So for North America, you'll go through the match program for those residencies, and in Canada, you would be eligible to participate in CARMS.
And we do have what we call our residency series, where the North American deans will provide you some supports as you're going through the match process in terms of preparing your documentation, preparing for interviews, and some of our successful students will participate in that as well. And we also have a number of series with students who've been successful in the match and students who've been successful in gaining internships. They'll share that information through webinars and talks at our conferences. And we have an OUM Alumni Association. Those individuals are available to support our new graduates as well. Fumi and Anonymous are asking a little bit about non-traditional students. So I think we'll end with their questions. So Fumi wants to know, what are your thoughts on older non-traditional students? And Anonymous wanted to know about, is there an age limit for entry into the medical degree? I guess I'll start. My thoughts are on older medical students is if you've got like the level of commitment and motivation, really your age does not matter. We are not focused on like you have to be this age before you come into our program. If you have the motivation, if you have the unique skills and abilities to provide empathetic and excellent care in practice, then we want to educate you and see that dream come true. We have a lot of students. We started our slide saying that we're focused on supporting non-traditional students. So I would say that students who are in that age range are non-traditional as medical students, and we're here to support them. We do have students in that age group. I think we will continue to do that because there are many reasons for why people wait till later on in life to pursue something like this. And if OUM is the right fit for you, your age doesn't matter to us in that way. Camille or Shanda, is there anything you want to add?
I think that was beautifully put.
We don't even look at age.
No,
on your application.
I don't think it's on there.
not a factor.
And we don't ask any questions like about that as part of the admissions process. And we have students of all different ages. And like, I love being in classrooms with students of all different ages, experience, backgrounds, areas of the world. Like, it's so fun to be able to discuss things with people who have different viewpoints and can respect that. Okay, so we're gone to 2 minutes over, but I would like to, I forgot, Shanda, that we have a couple of next steps after this. So we'll go through that as an endpoint. Please go ahead when you're ready.
I'll go quickly. So deadlines, we talked about it several times. Applications have to be submitted by the deadline. You need all of your documents, including the external letters of recommendation. All of the transcripts we talked about, they have to be in your application and it has to say it's complete before you can even submit. So just keep an eye on your application, submit by the deadline. If you miss the deadline, you'll automatically be pushed, if it's applicable, to the next intake. Acceptance deadlines, so you'll be told all about this in much more communication, but they are, if you want to accept your offer, the 1st of December and the 1st of June. And there are orientation dates for January and July. And we have some upcoming webinars.
Yep, so we'll be back here on 13th, 14th of August, myself and some of our student ambassadors. And then, I thought it was in September, but it is right before the deadline with our Chief Financial Officer, where we'll talk a little bit more about tuition and fees. I'm forgetting whose question that was. I think it was maybe Folashades about the tuition and fees. So if my explanation you don't like it that much or you need some more information, encourage you to come back and be same place, same time, different link in about a month's time. For those of you who are in Australia, Aotearoa, New Zealand, and Samoa, we'll be talking a little bit more about the standard pathway. That is the pathway that leads to support for licensure in those 3 countries. We'll be talking about that in October. And then in December, talking about the mind-body balance in medical school. So hope to see each and every one of you again at those live webinars. Feel free to submit your questions in advance or to come with them here. We'll answer as many as we can because we like interacting with you and knowing what you want to know about our program. Thank you so much, Ms. Camille and Ms. Shanda, for joining us today. And if students need some more information about admissions or want to get in touch with you, what should they do?
Recommend sending us an email. You can reach out to us at admissions@oum.edu.ws, or you can always set up a meeting with us or give us a phone call.
Thank you.
Most of our emails have the book an appointment with us. So yeah, just click on that and book an appointment that's convenient for you, and we'll be there to chat to you.
Thank you so much. Whawhata lava, Shanda and Camille, and to each of you joining us here in person or whether you're joining us via recording. We hope to see you in our classrooms in the near future. Thanks so much and see you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.